The morning sky over Seoul turned dark as massive ships blocked out the sun. Park Soo-jin looked up from her physics textbook and watched the alien vessels hover above the city. They were bigger than anything humans had ever built. Each ship looked like a floating mountain made of metal and strange lights. Soo-jin was 17 years old and sitting in her favorite spot at Seoul National University's library. She was not supposed to be there. Most 17-year-olds were in high school. But Soo-jin was different. She had finished high school at 14 and was now working on her third university degree. People called her a genius, but Soo-jin just thought she was curious about everything. Her phone buzzed with emergency alerts. The same message appeared on every screen in the library. All citizens remain calm. Government officials are handling the situation. But Soo-jin could see that people were not calm. Students ran out of the library. Cars honked loudly in the streets. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone was crying near the windows. Soo-jin stayed in her chair and watched the ships. She counted 12 of them over Seoul alone. News reports on her phone showed similar ships over every major city on Earth. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, they were everywhere. An hour later, every television and radio in the world received the same transmission. The voice spoke perfect English, but it sounded strange, cold, electronic. People of Earth, I am Ambassador Velthar of the Galactic Council. Your species has violated galactic law. You have developed forbidden technologies without permission. You have sent signals into space without authorization. You have created artificial intelligence beyond acceptable limits. Soo-jin frowned. She had never heard of galactic law before. No human had. The voice continued. The Galactic Council has decided your fate. You have 3 choices. First, surrender all your advanced technology to us. Second, accept permanent imprisonment in your solar system. Third, prepare for complete destruction. The transmission showed an alien creature. It had blue skin and 4 arms. Its eyes were completely black. Behind it stood other aliens. Some looked like walking crystals, others like floating gas clouds, and some like machines with glowing parts. You have 72 hours to decide. Choose wisely. The transmission ended. The world fell silent. Soo-jin's phone rang. The caller ID showed President Kim Tae-ho. This surprised her. She had met the president only once, during a ceremony for young scientists. She answered the call. Soo-jin, I need you in the Blue House immediately, President Kim said. His voice sounded tired and worried. We are gathering our best minds. The country needs you. But I'm just a student, Soo-jin replied. You are more than that, and you know it. A car is coming to get you. Soo-jin packed her textbooks and waited. Through the library windows, she watched people in the streets. Some were running. Others stood still, looking up at the alien ships. Children pointed at the sky while their parents pulled them away. The government car arrived quickly. The driver, a serious man in a black suit, said nothing during the trip to the Blue House. Soo-jin used the time to think about what she had heard. The aliens spoke of laws that humans did not know existed. They mentioned technologies that humans had only recently developed. How long had they been watching Earth? The Blue House was full of people when Soo-jin arrived. She recognized some faces from television. General Lee Dong-wook, the head of the military. Dr. Choi Hye-jin, the foreign minister. Professor Nam Jun-ho, the country's top expert on languages and communication. There were scientists, politicians, and military officers from around the world, all connected by video calls. President Kim welcomed Soo-jin personally. Thank you for coming so quickly, he said. We need fresh ideas. Everyone here is thinking about this problem in the same way. You might see something we cannot. The meeting room had large screens showing the alien ships from different angles. Scientists were analyzing the ship's energy signatures. Military experts were discussing defense options. Diplomats were arguing about how to respond to the ultimatum. We should fight, General Lee said. Humanity has never surrendered to anyone. Fight with what? Dr. Choi replied. Their smallest ship is larger than our biggest aircraft carrier. Their technology is centuries ahead of ours. Maybe we can negotiate, suggested a diplomat from the United Nations. Find some middle ground. Soo-jin listened to the arguments for 2 hours. The adults were smart and experienced, but they were thinking like adults. They wanted to find a solution that made sense according to human rules. But these were not human rules anymore. Finally, President Kim asked Soo-jin what she thought. "I think we are asking the wrong questions," Soo-jin said, quietly. The room became silent. Everyone looked at the teenager in the corner. "What do you mean?" President Kim asked. Soo-jin stood up and walked to the main screen. She pointed at the alien ambassador. "He said we violated galactic law, but how can we violate laws we never knew existed? And why are they telling us about these laws only now?" Professor Nam nodded slowly. "That is a good point. The timing seems strange." "Also," Soo-jin continued, "look at how they are organized." She pointed to the different aliens in the transmission. "This is not one species talking to us. This is a group, a council with many different members. Groups like this have politics, they have disagreements, they have rules about how they make decisions." General Lee frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we learn more about them before we decide anything. They gave us 72 hours. That is enough time to understand who we are really dealing with." Dr. Choi shook her head. "How can we learn about aliens in 3 days?" Soo-jin smiled for the first time since the ships arrived. "They are still here, above our cities. They are not hiding. They want us to see them. That means they want to communicate. And if they want to communicate, we can learn from them." She walked back to her seat and opened her laptop. Her fingers moved quickly across the keyboard. "I have been analyzing their transmission, the signal patterns, the language structure, the visual composition. There are patterns here, rules. This Galactic Council operates according to specific protocols." The room watched as Soo-jin worked. Numbers and graphs appeared on her screen. She was breaking down the alien transmission like a puzzle. "Furthermore," Soo-jin said without looking up from her computer, "they made a mistake. They told us we have 3 choices, but they only gave us details about surrender or destruction. They mentioned imprisonment in our solar system but did not explain what that means. This suggests they do not expect us to choose that option." President Kim sat down, next to Soo-jin. "What are you thinking?" Soo-jin finally looked up from her laptop. Her eyes were bright with an idea that was still forming. "I am thinking that we should not choose any of their 3 options. I think we should create a 4th option that they did not expect. Such as, I need more time to work that out. But first we need to talk to them directly, not through a transmission. Face to face." The room erupted in discussion. Some people thought the idea was brilliant. Others thought it was suicide. General Lee stood up. "Absolutely not. We cannot send anyone onto their ships. It is too dangerous." "It is dangerous to do nothing," Soo-jin replied. "And it is dangerous to fight. And it is dangerous to surrender. Everything is dangerous now. But talking to them gives us information. Information gives us power." President Kim looked around the room. Who would we send? The adults looked at each other. No one wanted to volunteer for what might be a suicide mission. Soo-jin raised her hand. "Send me." The room fell silent again. "You are 17 years old," Dr. Choi said gently. "This is not appropriate." "Age does not matter to aliens," Soo-jin replied. "They do not understand human concepts of childhood and adulthood. To them, I am just another human. But I have advantages that adults do not have." "Such as?" President Kim asked. "I do not think like an adult. I do not follow adult rules about what is possible and what is impossible. I see patterns that adults miss, because adults already know how things are supposed to work." Soo-jin paused. "Also, they will not expect a 17-year-old to be dangerous. That gives me an advantage." The discussion continued for another hour. In the end, President Kim made the decision. "Soo-jin will go," he announced. "But not alone. Professor Nam will accompany her as a language expert and advisor." Soo-jin felt excited and terrified at the same time. In less than 24 hours, she would be face to face with aliens who could destroy her planet with the push of a button. But she was not thinking about destruction. She was thinking about the patterns she had seen in their transmission, the rules they followed, the way they organized themselves. Soo-jin had an idea forming in her mind. It was a crazy idea, An impossible idea, but as she had just told the adults in the room, impossible was just another word for something that no one had tried yet. Outside the Blue House, the alien ships continued to hover in the sky, waiting for humanity's answer. The alien ship was nothing like Su-Jin had imagined. She had expected cold metal and strange lights, but the inside looked almost warm. The walls curved smoothly, and soft light came from everywhere at once. The air smelled like flowers she had never encountered before. Professor Nam walked beside her, carrying a device that translated alien languages. He looked nervous. His hands shook slightly as he adjusted his tie for the 10th time since they had arrived. "Remember," he whispered to Su-Jin, "let me handle the formal greetings. These beings are thousands of years old. They respect protocol and ceremony." Su-Jin nodded, but she was not really listening. She was observing everything around her. The Ya'i ship's corridors were wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The floor had a strange texture that helped her feet grip better. Even the ceiling height changed as they walked, adapting to different alien body types. Their escort was a tall, thin creature with silver skin and no visible mouth. It communicated through a small device that projected words into the air. "The council chamber is ahead," the words appeared. "You will address the assembly with respect." The chamber doors opened, and Su-Jin's breath caught in her throat. The room was enormous. Hundreds of different aliens sat in circular rows that rose toward the ceiling. Some looked almost human, but with extra arms or strange skin colors. Others were completely alien. Floating gas clouds, walking crystal formations, and mechanical beings with glowing eyes. At the center of the room sat Ambassador Velthar, the blue-skinned alien from the transmission. His 4 arms moved constantly as he spoke with other council members. When he saw the humans enter, his black eyes focused on them with obvious displeasure. "So," Velthar's voice echoed through the chamber, "Earth sends us children and scholars. Is this how your species shows respect to the Galactic Council?" Professor Nam stepped forward and began a formal greeting in what he hoped was proper galactic protocol. He spoke about humanity's honor at being invited aboard their vessel and their desire for peaceful communication. Velthar interrupted him. "We did not invite you for conversation. We called you here to receive your planet's surrender. Have you decided which of our 3 options you will choose?" Su-Jin watched the assembly as Velthar spoke. Many of the aliens seemed bored. Some were having their own conversations. A few appeared to be sleeping or in some form of rest state. This was not the united, focused group she had expected. "Honored Ambassador," Professor Nam began, "we request more time to consider—" 12 hours, Velthar cut him off. "You have wasted 1 full day already. We will not wait longer." Su-Jin finally spoke. "Thank you for your generosity." The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the 17-year-old human girl who had just interrupted a formal galactic proceeding. Velthar's expression showed surprise and anger. "The child speaks out of turn." "I apologize," Su-Jin said calmly. "I am still learning your customs. On Earth, when someone offers a gift, we say thank you." "What gift?" Velthar demanded. "The gift of time. 12 hours is very generous. It gives us enough time to return to Earth and bring back our formal response." Su-Jin paused. "Unless, of course, you prefer that we make such an important decision without consulting our government." Professor Nam looked at Su-Jin with worry. This was not what they had planned. Velthar considered her words. "Very well, 12 hours, but do not test our patience further." "Of course not," Su-Jin replied. "We understand that managing a council of so many different species must be very difficult. It requires great skill to keep everyone unified." Some of the aliens in the assembly shifted in their seats. Su-Jin had noticed something important. Velthar was not the only one in charge. This was a democracy of sorts, or at least a group that made decisions together. "The council has existed for 50,000 years, Velthar said proudly. "We have brought peace and order to the galaxy." "Impressive," Su-Jin said. "How many species belong to the council?" 347 civilizations acknowledge our authority." Su-Jin did quick math in her head. "And all of them agree on every decision?" "The council speaks with one voice," Velthar replied. But Sujin noticed that several aliens in the assembly made small gestures or sounds. Not everyone seemed comfortable with that statement. That must make decision-making very efficient, Sujin continued. On Earth, even small groups have difficulty agreeing on simple matters. I cannot imagine how you manage such unity among hundreds of different species. An alien that looked like a walking tree made a sound that Professor Nam's translator interpreted as laughter. Several others shifted uncomfortably. Veltar's eyes narrowed. Are you questioning the Council's authority? Not at all, Sujin replied quickly. I am expressing admiration for your achievement. On Earth, we study organizations and how they work. The Council must have developed remarkable systems to maintain agreement among so many different cultures and viewpoints. She was fishing for information, and it was working. Several Council members were now paying attention to the conversation, instead of ignoring it. Perhaps, Sujin continued, during our 12 hours, we could learn more about how the Council operates. It would help us understand how to properly present our response. Velthar looked suspicious, but before he could respond, another alien spoke up. This one looked like a large insect with multiple eyes. The human child asks reasonable questions, the insect being said. Understanding our processes would indeed help them formulate an appropriate response. Councilmember Crix raises a valid point, said another alien, this one resembling a floating jellyfish. Ignorance of our procedures could lead to further delays. Velthar clearly did not like where this was going, but he was outnumbered. Very well. You may observe Council procedures during your remaining time here, but do not interfere with our operations. Thank you, Sujin said. We will be honored to learn from your example. Over the next several hours, Sujin and Professor Nam were given a guided tour of the ship and allowed to observe Council meetings. Sujin paid careful attention to everything she saw and heard. The Council was not as unified as Velthar claimed. There were clear factions and groups. Some species were clearly more powerful than others. The insect-like Crix represented a group of scientific species who seemed focused on research and exploration. The jellyfish creature, called Morgeth, spoke for trading civilizations who cared about commerce and economics. But there were also species that rarely spoke, small, quiet beings who sat in the back rows and only voted when called upon. Sujin realized these might be the weaker members of the Council, species who had joined for protection rather than power. During a break in the formal sessions, Sujin approached Crix. Your scientific achievements are legendary, she said. Earth scientists would be honored to learn from the Council's accumulated knowledge. Crix's multiple eyes focused on her. Your species shows promise in several fields. Your mathematical approaches are unconventional, but effective. Unconventional? Most species develop technology following predictable patterns. Humans seem to solve problems by ignoring established limitations. It is inefficient, but occasionally produces surprising results. Sujin smiled. Is that good or bad? Unknown, Crix replied. The Council prefers predictable development. Surprises can be dangerous. This gave Sujin an idea. What if surprises could be beneficial? What if unpredictable thinking could solve problems that conventional approaches cannot? Before Crix could answer, Velthar interrupted. Your time is ending, humans. You must return to your planet and bring back your government's decision. Sujin and Professor Nam were escorted back to their shuttle. As they prepared to leave, Sujin turned to Velthar. Ambassador, may I ask one final question? Velthar gestured impatiently for her to proceed. The Council has existed for 50,000 years and includes 347 species. In all that time, has any species ever requested to join the Council rather than being conquered or absorbed? Velthar's forearms stopped moving. His black eyes stared at Sujin for a long moment. No, he said finally. No species has ever made such a request. Interesting, Sujin replied. Thank you for your time, Ambassador. As their shuttle flew back toward Earth, Professor Nam looked at Sujin with amazement. What are you planning? Sujin was staring out the window at the alien fleet surrounding Earth. I am planning to give the Galactic Council something they have never experienced before. Which is? A choice they never expected to make. Professor Nam waited for more explanation. but Su-Jin was quiet for the rest of the trip. She was thinking about everything she had observed on the alien ship, the factions within the council, the different priorities of different species, the rigid protocols they followed. The way Velthar had reacted to her final question, most importantly, she was thinking about galactic law. The council had accused humanity of violating laws they had never been told about. But laws worked both ways. If there were rules about what humans could not do, there were also rules about what the council could and could not do. Su-Jin was beginning to understand that the Galactic Council's greatest strength might also be its greatest weakness. They had created a system so complex and rule-based that they had become trapped by their own procedures. And Su-Jin was very good at finding loopholes in complex systems. When they land, the Blue House conference room was packed with worried faces when Su-Jin arrived. President Kim looked like he had not slept since she left. General Lee was studying military reports with desperate focus. Dr. Choi was on the phone with world leaders trying to coordinate a global response. "What did you learn?" President Kim asked immediately. Su-Jin sat down and opened her laptop. "I learned that the Galactic Council is not what they pretend to be." She projected her notes onto the main screen. "They claim to be united, but they are actually a collection of different groups with different goals. Some care about science, some about trade, some about military power. Many of the smaller species are basically prisoners who joined for protection." General Lee looked up from his reports. "How does that help us? They still have enough firepower to destroy our planet." "It helps because they cannot use that firepower without agreement from all 347 member species," Su-Jin replied. "Everything the Council does requires unanimous consent." Professor Nam nodded. "She is correct. I observed their decision-making process. Even small matters require extensive discussion and voting." Su-Jin pulled up another screen. "More importantly, I discovered something that changes everything. No species has ever requested to join the Galactic Council voluntarily. They have only ever absorbed species through conquest or threat." "So?" Dr. Choi asked, hanging up her phone. "So there must be laws and procedures for voluntary membership that have never been used. And according to galactic law, any species that formally applies for membership cannot be harmed while their application is being considered." The room fell silent as everyone processed this information. President Kim leaned forward. "Are you suggesting that we apply to join the Council instead of choosing one of their three options?" "That is exactly what I am suggesting," Su-Jin replied. "It will completely change the legal situation. Instead of being criminals facing punishment, we become applicants with rights under galactic law." General Lee shook his head. "They will never accept our membership. This just delays the inevitable." "Delay is exactly what we need," Su-Jin said. "Time to study them, understand their weaknesses, and turn their own system against them." Dr. Choi looked skeptical. "How can we turn their system against them?" Su-Jin smiled and pulled up a new document. "By being human." She had spent the flight back to Earth preparing a detailed analysis of the Galactic Council's structure. Her laptop screen showed charts and graphs that mapped the relationships between different species and factions. The Council's strength comes from unity, but unity is also their weakness. They have spent 50,000 years creating rules and procedures that prevent conflict between members. But those same rules make it almost impossible for them to adapt to new situations. She pointed to different sections of her analysis. "Look at their decision-making process. Every major action requires debate, committee review, precedent research, and unanimous voting. The system works when dealing with familiar problems, but humans represent something completely new." Professor Nam was studying Su-Jin's charts with growing excitement. "The procedural requirements alone could tie them up for months or even years." "Exactly," Su-Jin said. "And while they are arguing about what to do with us, we will be learning everything we can about their individual species and their internal politics." President Kim stood up and paced around the room. "This is incredibly risky. If they reject our membership application, we will be in an even worse position than before." "Will we?" Su-Jin asked. "Right now, they see us as criminals who violated laws we never knew existed. If we apply for membership, we become potential partners who were simply uninformed about proper procedures. That changes the entire conversation." She pulled up another screen showing profiles of individual council members. More importantly, membership applications give us the right to meet privately with council members to discuss requirements and expectations. That means we can start building relationships with different factions. General Lee was beginning to look interested. Divide and conquer? Not divide and conquer, Sujin corrected. Understand and influence. Some council members might actually want us as allies. The scientific species could benefit from human research methods. The trading species could profit from access to human markets. Even some of the military species might see value in human tactical thinking. Dr. Choi nodded, slowly. If we can convince even a small number of species to support our membership, it becomes much harder for the others to justify destroying us. And if they cannot reach unanimous agreement to destroy us, the status quo continues indefinitely. Professor Nam added, we buy time to develop better relationships and stronger positions. Sujin closed her laptop and looked around the room. The plan has 3 phases. First, we submit a formal membership application that follows proper galactic procedures. This gives us legal protection and forces them to treat us as applicants rather than criminals. She held up one finger. Second, we use the application process to meet with individual council members and learn about their specific interests and concerns. We find species that might benefit from alliance with humanity and begin building support. She held up a second finger. Third, we demonstrate human value to the galaxy in ways that make our destruction seem wasteful and counterproductive. We show them that humans can solve problems and create opportunities that their traditional methods cannot. President Kim sat back down. What kind of problems? Sujin grinned. The problems they have been unable to solve for thousands of years because they are too committed to established procedures. The Council's own rules prevent them from thinking creatively about difficult situations. She opened her laptop again and showed them a list she had compiled during the flight. Based on my observations, the Council is facing several ongoing challenges. Resource allocation disputes between member species, trade route conflicts, scientific research deadlocks, even simple administrative inefficiencies that they cannot fix because changing procedures requires unanimous consent. And you think humans can solve these problems? Dr. Choi asked. I think humans approach problems differently than any species in the Council. We ignore limitations that others consider absolute. We combine incompatible ideas. We take risks that seem illogical to others. Sujin paused. The council member Crix called our methods unconventional but effective. That might be exactly what they need. General Lee was studying Sujin's list of council problems. Some of these issues have existed for centuries. What makes you think we can solve them in a few months? Because we do not know they are supposed to be impossible, Sujin replied. The council species have spent so long believing these problems cannot be solved that they have stopped trying new approaches. Humans do not have that limitation. The discussion continued for 2 more hours. President Kim consulted with world leaders by video conference. Military experts analyzed the risks. Diplomats reviewed the legal implications. In the end, they decided to trust the 17-year-old genius who had already gotten them further than anyone thought possible. We will submit the membership application, President Kim announced. Sujin will lead our delegation and begin implementing her strategy immediately. As the meeting ended, Professor Nam pulled Sujin aside. This plan requires you to outmaneuver beings who have been playing galactic politics for thousands of years. Are you certain you can do this? Sujin looked out the window at the alien ships hanging in the sky. No, I am not certain. But I am certain that their current plan will result in either human extinction or permanent enslavement. My plan at least gives us a chance. And if your plan fails, then we will be no worse off than we are now, and we will have learned valuable information about our enemies. An hour later, Sujin and Professor Nam were back on their shuttle, heading toward the Galactic Council flagship. This time, Sujin carried a formal document written in 17 different alien languages, humanity's official application for membership in the Galactic Council. The document was a masterpiece of diplomatic language that Professor Nam had helped prepare. It acknowledged humanity's inadvertent violations of galactic law while expressing eagerness to learn proper procedures. It highlighted human achievements in science, technology, and cultural development. Most importantly, it formally requested consideration for council membership under established galactic protocols. As they approached the alien fleet, Su-Jin reviewed her notes one final time. She had identified 12 council species that might be receptive to human alliance. She had prepared talking points for each faction's specific interests. She had even researched galactic legal precedents that might support human arguments. But most importantly, she had prepared herself mentally for what was about to become the most complex negotiation in human history. She was about to walk into a room full of beings who could destroy her planet with a thought, and she was going to convince them that humanity deserved to join their exclusive club. The shuttle docked with the flagship just as the 12-hour deadline expired. Velthar was waiting for them in the main airlock, along with several other high-ranking council members. "Have you brought your planet's surrender?" Velthar asked immediately. Su-Jin smiled and handed him the membership application document. "We have brought some." The Galactic Council chamber erupted in chaos the moment Su-Jin presented humanity's membership application. Hundreds of aliens spoke at once in dozens of different languages. Some stood up from their seats. Others made loud noises that Professor Nam's translator could not interpret. A few simply stared at Su-Jin as if she had grown extra heads. Velthar held the membership document like it might explode. His 4 arms trembled slightly as he read through the formal language. "This is unprecedented," he said finally. "Yes, it is," Su-Jin replied calmly. "According to galactic records, no species has ever voluntarily requested council membership. We are honored to be the first." An ancient-looking alien that resembled a walking crystal formation spoke up. "The legal implications are complex. Membership applications fall under Protocol 7 of the Galactic Charter. Such applications cannot be dismissed without proper review procedures." Velthar's black eyes narrowed. "Chairman Mordek, surely this situation falls outside normal protocols." So the crystal being was Chairman Mordek, the actual leader of the council. Su-Jin had wondered about the power structure, and now it was becoming clear. Velthar was just a spokesperson. "Protocol is protocol," Mordek replied in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. "The application must be processed according to established procedures. The applicant's species cannot be harmed while their request is under consideration." "How long do these procedures typically take?" Su-Jin asked innocently. Mordek consulted a device that projected holographic text. "Standard review period is 6 galactic months for preliminary assessment, followed by detailed evaluation that may require up to 3 galactic years." Su-Jin nodded as if this was exactly what she had expected. "We understand that proper evaluation takes time. Humanity is prepared to participate fully in all required procedures." Velthar looked furious, but he was trapped by the Council's own rules. He could not order Earth's destruction while a formal membership application was being processed. "Very well," Mordek announced. "The Council will process humanity's membership application according to established protocols. Ambassador Velthar will oversee the preliminary review. Council member Crix will lead the Scientific Evaluation Committee. Council member Morgeth will assess economic integration potential." Su-Jin recognized Crix and Morgeth from her previous visit, the scientific insect and the trading jellyfish. "Perfect. During the evaluation period," Mordek continued, "human representatives may request private consultations with council members to discuss membership requirements and expectations." "Thank you, Chairman," Su-Jin said. "We look forward to learning from the Council's wisdom and experience." As the formal session ended, various council members approached Su-Jin and Professor Nam. Some seemed curious about humanity. Others appeared annoyed by the disruption to their normal procedures. A few looked amused by the situation. Crix was among the first to speak with them privately. "Your application strategy is clever," the insect being said. "Most species only consider council membership after being conquered or threatened. Voluntary application changes the entire legal framework." "We prefer cooperation to conflict," Su-Jin replied. "Earth's scientists would be eager to contribute to galactic research projects." "Human research methods are unusual," Crix admitted. "Your species seems to ignore conventional limitations in pursuit of solutions. This could be valuable for problems that traditional approaches cannot solve." Su-Jin leaned forward with interest. "What kinds of problems?" Crix looked around to make sure no other council members were listening. "The council has faced certain technical challenges for centuries. Resource allocation algorithms that produce suboptimal results. communication protocols that create delays between distant sectors, scientific research projects that have stalled due to procedural conflicts between different member species. Perhaps human perspectives could offer fresh approaches, Sujin suggested. Perhaps, Crix agreed. I will schedule formal consultation sessions to discuss these matters in detail. Next, Morgeth approached them. The jellyfish-like being floated gracefully through the air, trailing glowing tentacles. Human economic systems are primitive but show interesting potential for rapid growth. Your species appears to value innovation and risk-taking in ways that could benefit galactic trade networks, Professor Nam spoke up. Earth's markets are eager to engage with galactic commerce. We have resources and products that might be valuable to Council species. What kinds of products? Morgeth asked. Sujin had prepared for this question. Cultural exports primarily, human music, literature, entertainment, and art forms. Also specialized technical solutions for complex problems. Humans excel at finding unconventional applications for existing technologies. Morgeth's tentacles glowed brighter. Cultural products are highly valued in galactic markets. Few species produce truly original artistic content, and technical innovation always has commercial applications. The conversations continued for hours. Sujin met with representatives from dozens of different council species. Each group had different interests and concerns, but many seemed genuinely intrigued by humanity's potential contributions. The scientific species were interested in human research methods and creative problem-solving approaches. The trading species saw economic opportunities in human markets and products. Even some of the military species were curious about human tactical thinking and strategic innovations. But Sujin also identified the opposition. Several powerful species, led by Velthar's faction, clearly viewed humanity as a threat to the established order. They preferred the old system where the Council expanded only through conquest and absorption of weaker civilizations. During a break between meetings, Sujin found herself in a quiet corridor with Professor Nam. "How do you think it is going?" he asked. "Better than I hoped," Sujin replied. "The Council is more divided than they want to admit. Many species are frustrated with the current system, but have never had alternatives to consider." "What do you mean?" Sujin pulled out her tablet and showed him notes from her conversations. "Look at the pattern. Scientific species want more research freedom, but are constrained by bureaucratic procedures. Trading species want market expansion, but are limited by territorial restrictions. Military species want strategic flexibility, but are bound by outdated treaties. And you think humans can help with these problems?" "I think humans represent change, and change is exactly what many council members secretly want. They just need someone to show them that change is possible." Professor Nam looked worried. "Velthar and his allies will not accept change easily. They benefit from the current system." "Which is why we need to build a coalition of species that want reform," Sujin replied. "If enough council members support human membership, Velthar's faction cannot block it." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a small, quiet alien that Sujin had noticed sitting in the back rows during council sessions. It looked like a cross between a bird and a lizard, with feathered scales and large, intelligent eyes. "Excuse me," the creature said in a soft voice. "I am Council Member Pixnal of the Pacifist Assembly. May I speak with you privately?" Sujin and Professor Nam followed Pixnal to an even more secluded area of the ship. The small alien looked around nervously before speaking. "I represent 17 species that joined the Council seeking protection from more aggressive civilizations," Pixnal explained. "We have little power in Council decisions, but we have voting rights." "We would be honored to hear your concerns," Sujin said carefully. "Our concern is simple. The current Council system does not protect weak species as it promises. Powerful members dominate decision-making while smaller species are ignored or exploited. We want change, but we cannot achieve it alone." Sujin felt a surge of excitement. This was exactly the kind of alliance she had hoped to find. "What kind of change do you want?" "Genuine equality, fair representation, protection from exploitation by stronger members. The Council's original charter promised these things, but the reality is very different. And you think human membership might help achieve these goals?" Pixnal's large eyes brightened. Humans are new to galactic politics. You have no established alliances or prejudices. You might support reforms that benefit all species, not just the powerful ones. Sujin and Professor Nam exchanged glances. They had just found their first major allies in the council. The Pacifist Assembly would be willing to support human membership in exchange for a commitment to council reform, Pixnall continued. 17 votes may not seem like many, but in a system requiring unanimous consent, 17 opposing votes can block any proposal. Sujin smiled. I think we can definitely discuss mutual interests and common goals. Over the next several hours, Sujin met with representatives from the Pacifist Assembly's member species. They were indeed weak by galactic standards, small populations, limited technology, minimal military power. But they were also intelligent, creative, and desperate for change. More importantly, they controlled exactly the kind of blocking minority that could paralyze the Council's decision-making process. If Sujin could convince them that human membership served their interests, she would have a powerful weapon against Velthar's faction. As the first day of formal consultations ended, Sujin felt optimistic about her progress. 3 weeks into the membership review process, Sujin had accomplished something remarkable. She had turned the Galactic Council's greatest strength into its greatest weakness. The council chamber was in chaos again, but this time the chaos was working in humanity's favor. What had started as a simple membership application had become a galaxy-wide crisis of confidence in the council's governing system. Sujin sat quietly in the observer section, watching as council members argued with increasing desperation. In just 3 weeks, she had managed to expose decades of hidden corruption, systematic oppression, and bureaucratic incompetence. It had started with simple questions during her consultation meetings. Council member Velthar, she had asked during one formal session, when you absorbed the Altair civilization 15 years ago, were they given the same 3 options you offered humanity? Velthar had answered proudly that the Altairs had been conquered after refusing to surrender. But Sujin had done her research. According to galactic records, the Altairs had actually tried to negotiate a peaceful agreement. Their proposals had been ignored, and their planet had been invaded without following proper diplomatic protocols. Interesting, Sujin had replied. According to Protocol 12 of the Galactic Charter, military action requires unanimous council consent after all diplomatic options have been exhausted. Was this vote recorded? The question had triggered a review of historical records that revealed dozens of similar violations. The powerful council species had been bypassing their own laws for centuries, making decisions without proper consultation and using military force without legal authorization. The revelations had spread quickly through the council's communication networks. Smaller species that had been told their conquests were legal and necessary discovered that they had actually been victims of illegal aggression. Trading partnerships that had been presented as mutual benefit agreements were exposed as exploitative, contracts that favored only the dominant species. Now, as Sujin watched the latest council session, she saw the results of her strategy. The Pacifist Assembly had grown from 17 species to 43, as more oppressed civilizations joined their coalition. The scientific species were demanding investigations into suppressed research projects. Even some of the trading species were questioning deals that they had previously accepted without examination. Chairman Mordek called for order, but his crystal form was showing stress fractures that suggested extreme agitation. These accusations and investigations are disrupting essential council operations, he announced. We must focus on the original issue, humanity's membership application. Velthar stood up with obvious anger. The humans have deliberately created this chaos to avoid facing judgment for their crimes. Their application should be rejected immediately. Sujin raised her hand to speak. The chamber fell silent as hundreds of alien eyes turned toward the 17-year-old human who had single-handedly destabilized the galaxy's most powerful organization. Chairman Mordek, she said respectfully, I request permission to address the council regarding our membership application. Permission granted, Mordek replied, though his tone suggested he regretted the decision. Sujin stood up and walked to the center of the chamber. Professor Nam watched nervously from the observer section, knowing that whatever Sujin said next would determine humanity's fate. Honored council members, Sujin began, Humanity did not create the problems that are currently disrupting your operations. We simply asked questions about how those operations work. Murmurs of agreement came from various sections of the assembly. The questions we asked were not accusations, Sujin continued. They were attempts to understand galactic law so that we could follow it properly. But in seeking to understand your laws, we discovered that many of you have not been following them either, Velthar interrupted angrily. The humans are trying to deflect attention from their own violations. Sujin turned to face him calmly. Ambassador Velthar, humanity freely admits that we violated galactic laws, but we violated them through ignorance, not through deliberate choice. You and your allies violated them while knowing exactly what you were doing. The chamber erupted in discussion. Several council members were now standing and gesturing at each other with obvious hostility. Sujin waited for the noise to die down before continuing. The Galactic Council faces a choice. You can continue with the current system, which has clearly failed to live up to its founding principles. Or you can embrace reform that restores the values your organization was originally created to protect. And you think humans should lead this reform? Velthar asked sarcastically. No, Sujin replied, surprising everyone. Humans should participate in this reform. We should work together with all council species to create a system that actually serves everyone's interests, not just the interests of the most powerful members. She gestured toward the assembled aliens. Look around this chamber. You represent hundreds of different civilizations, each with unique perspectives and capabilities. The current system wastes most of that potential by concentrating power in the hands of a few dominant species. Pixanal of the Pacifist Assembly spoke up. What specific reforms do humans propose? Sujin had been preparing for this question for weeks. First, transparent decision-making processes that allow all members to see how votes are conducted and policies are developed. Second, fair representation that gives smaller species meaningful voices in council affairs. Third, accountability, mechanisms that prevent powerful species from ignoring galactic law. And fourth, prompted Crix of the scientific faction, fourth, genuine cooperation instead of enforced compliance. Species should join the council because membership benefits them, not because they are forced to choose between submission and destruction. The chamber was quiet now, as council members considered Sujin's words. Chairman Mordek finally spoke. These are significant changes to established procedures. Yes, they are, Sujin agreed. But the current procedures are not working. Half your members feel oppressed or ignored. Your decision-making system is so complex that it prevents you from addressing urgent problems. Your enforcement mechanisms are applied inconsistently based on political power rather than legal principles. She paused and looked around the chamber. Humanity's membership application has revealed these problems, but we did not create them. They have existed for decades or even centuries. The question is whether you want to fix them or continue pretending they do not exist. Velthar made one final attempt to control the situation. The Council has maintained galactic peace for 50,000 years. Why should we change a system that has been successful? Sujin smiled. Ambassador, has the current system really been successful? You have peace, but it is the peace of oppression, not cooperation. You have unity, but it is unity based on fear, not shared values. You have stability, but it is the stability of stagnation, not progress. She gestured toward the various factions in the chamber. Look at what has happened in just 3 weeks since humanity applied for membership. Long-suppressed grievances have come into the open. Species that have been silent for centuries are finally speaking up. Problems that have been ignored for decades are finally being addressed. That sounds like chaos, not improvement, Velthar replied. No, Sujin said firmly. That sounds like democracy. The word hit the chamber like a physical blow. Democracy was a concept that most galactic civilizations had abandoned long ago in favor of more efficient systems of government. Democracy is messy and complicated, Sujin continued. It requires discussion and compromise and patience, but it also ensures that everyone has a voice and everyone's interests are considered. The current council system is not democratic. It is oligarchic, with power concentrated among a few dominant species. Morgeth of the trading faction spoke up. Democratic systems are inefficient. Decision-making takes too long. Slower decision-making is better than wrong decision-making, Su-jin replied. And slower decision-making is definitely better than illegal decision-making that violates your own founding charter. The debate continued for hours, but Su-jin could see that the momentum was shifting in humanity's favor. More and more council members were openly supporting reform proposals. The coalition supporting change was growing larger and more confident. Finally, Pixnall called for a formal vote. The Pacifist Assembly moves that the Council establish a reform committee to review current procedures and propose improvements. This committee should include representatives from all Council factions, including the human applicants. The motion passed by a significant majority, with only Velthar's core allies voting against it. Su-jin had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. She had convinced the galaxy's most powerful organization to reform itself from within, but, as the Council session ended, she knew that the real battle was just beginning. Velthar and his allies would not accept defeat easily, and they still controlled significant military resources. The next phase of Su-jin's plan would require her to outmaneuver opponents who had thousands of years of experience in galactic politics and were becoming increasingly desperate to maintain their power. As she left the chamber with Professor Nam, Su-jin received an urgent message from Earth. The alien fleet surrounding the warning came at 3 in the morning, ship time. Professor Nam woke Su-jin from her sleep with urgent news from Earth. Velthar's fleet was preparing to attack humanity's home planet, with or without Council authorization. How long do we have? Su-jin asked, immediately alert despite the early hour. 6 hours before the fleet reaches optimal firing position, Professor Nam replied. President Kim wants to know if we should prepare Earth's defenses for battle. Su-jin was quiet for a moment, thinking rapidly. No. Tell Earth to maintain peaceful posture. Any aggressive action will give Velthar the excuse he needs to claim self-defense. But if we do nothing, they will destroy us. If we do something, military, they will definitely destroy us, Su-jin corrected. Earth's weapons cannot match their technology. Our only hope is to stop this attack before it begins. She dressed quickly and headed for the council chamber, with Professor Nam following close behind. The ship's corridors were busier than usual, with aliens moving purposefully through the passages. Word of the impending attack had clearly spread throughout the fleet. In the chamber, Su-jin found chaos. Council members were arguing loudly in dozens of languages. Some were demanding immediate intervention to stop Velthar. Others were supporting his right to defend galactic security. Many seemed confused about what was happening. Chairman Mordek was trying to restore order, but his crystal form showed severe stress fractures. Council members must remain calm, he announced repeatedly. Unauthorized military action violates fundamental galactic law. Velthar stood at the center of the chamber, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. The humans have destabilized our entire civilization in just 3 weeks. They are clearly a dangerous species that threatens galactic security. Military action is justified under Emergency Protocol 5. Su-jin walked to the speaker's position without waiting for permission. The chamber fell silent as she approached. Chairman Mordek, she said clearly, I request immediate emergency session status to address this crisis. Granted, Mordek replied. Quickly. Su-jin turned to face Velthar directly. Ambassador, you claim that humans threaten galactic security. What specific threat do we pose? You have undermined Council authority and created rebellion among member species, Velthar replied angrily. We have asked questions about Council procedures and pointed out violations of galactic law, Su-jin corrected. If that undermines Council authority, then perhaps the problem is with the authority, not with the questions. Murmurs of agreement came from many parts of the chamber. Furthermore, Su-jin continued, Emergency Protocol 5 requires unanimous Council consent before military action. Have you obtained this consent? Velthar's eyes showed uncertainty for the first time. The emergency nature of the threat justifies immediate action. According to whose interpretation? Su-jin pressed. Emergency Protocol 5 specifically states that military action without unanimous consent is itself a violation of galactic law, regardless of circumstances. She turned to address the full assembly. Council members, you face a critical choice. You can allow Ambassador Velthar to bypass your own laws and attack humanity without proper authorization, or you can uphold the legal principles that this organization was founded to protect. Crix of the scientific faction spoke up. The human representative is correct. Emergency Protocol 5 does not authorize unilateral military action. It requires accelerated voting procedures, but still demands unanimous consent, which we do not have, added Morgeth of the trading faction. At least 47 species have already expressed opposition to military action against humanity. Velthar looked around the chamber with growing desperation. His support was crumbling as council members realized the legal implications of his planned attack. Sujin saw her opportunity. Chairman Mordek, I request an immediate vote on the following resolution. The Galactic Council condemns any unauthorized military action against applicant species and orders the immediate withdrawal of all fleet elements from threatening positions around Earth. Seconded, called Pixanal of the Pacifist Assembly. Seconded, echoed Crix and Morgeth simultaneously. Chairman Mordek had no choice but to call for the vote. The results were decisive. 231 species voted in favor of the resolution, 94 voted against, and 22 abstained. Velthar stared at the vote tallies in shock. He had lost by an enormous margin. The resolution passes, Mordek announced. All military vessels will immediately withdraw to non-threatening positions and await further council instructions. But Velthar was not finished. This council has been corrupted by human manipulation, he declared. I invoke Protocol 13, Emergency Dissolution and Reconstitution. A shocked silence filled the chamber. Protocol 13 was the nuclear option of galactic politics, a procedure that could dissolve the entire council and create a new governing body from scratch. Sujin felt her heart race. She had not anticipated this move. Protocol 13 required only a 30% vote to trigger dissolution proceedings. A dissolution vote has been called, Mordek announced reluctantly. All species must vote within 1 hour, or dissolution will proceed automatically. Sujin realized that Velthar was willing to destroy the entire galactic government rather than accept defeat. If he succeeded, humanity would face a new council dominated by his allies, with no legal protections and no hope of peaceful resolution. She had 1 hour to save not just humanity, but the entire galactic civilization. Sujin immediately began, working the chamber, moving from species to species with Professor Nam translating. She focused on the practical consequences of dissolution. If the council dissolves, she told the scientific species, all research projects and data sharing agreements will be suspended indefinitely. It could take decades to restore collaborative research programs. To the trading species, she emphasized economic disruption. Dissolution will invalidate all existing trade treaties and commercial agreements. Galactic commerce will collapse until a new framework can be negotiated. To the smaller species, she stressed vulnerability. Without council protection, weaker civilizations will be defenseless against aggressive neighbors. The strong will prey on the weak without any legal restraints. Most importantly, she approached species that had been neutral in the reform debate, but had practical reasons to preserve stability. With 30 minutes remaining, Sujin requested permission to address the full assembly one final time. Council members, she began, you are about to make the most important decision in galactic history. Ambassador Velthar wants you to destroy an institution that has existed for 50,000 years because he cannot accept that it needs to change. She gestured toward Velthar. He would rather rule over chaos than participate in democracy. He would rather destroy the galaxy's governing system than share power with those he considers inferior. Her voice grew stronger. But destruction is not reform. Chaos is not improvement. Starting over from nothing is not progress. She looked around the chamber at the hundreds of different species. You have spent weeks discovering problems with the current system. Those problems are real and serious. But you have also spent weeks developing solutions. You have built coalitions across species lines. You have found common ground despite your differences. The choice before you is simple. Do you want to build on the progress you have made, or do you want to let fear and anger destroy everything you have accomplished? She paused, letting her words sink in. Humanity's membership application revealed the flaws in your system. But humanity's presence has also shown you that those flaws can be fixed. We have proven that change is possible, that cooperation is achievable, that a better future is within reach. Sujin's final words rang across the chamber. Ambassador Velthar offers you destruction disguised as salvation. Humanity offers you transformation based on hope. Choose wisely. The vote was called with 5 minutes to spare. Species after species voted against dissolution. When the final tally appeared, Velthar had received only 78 votes, far short of the 104 needed to trigger Protocol 13. Velthar stared at the results in complete defeat. His faction had been thoroughly rejected by the galactic community. Chairman Mordek's voice carried new authority as he addressed the chamber. The dissolution motion has failed. The Galactic Council remains intact and will proceed with previously approved reform initiatives. He turned toward Sujin. The Council also votes to grant provisional membership to humanity, pending completion of integration procedures. Welcome to the galactic community. The chamber erupted in celebration. Hundreds of species cheered, whistled, or made whatever sounds indicated approval in their cultures. Sujin felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of what had just happened. In less than a month, she had gone from being a university student to becoming the architect of galactic transformation. Professor Nam approached her with tears in his eyes. Sujin, you did it. You actually did it. But Sujin was looking toward Earth on the chamber's main screen. The alien fleet was withdrawing to peaceful positions, their weapons powered down. Humanity was safe. More than that, humanity was now part of something larger. They would contribute to galactic science, commerce, and culture. They would help other species solve problems and build better futures. They would prove that